Hi guys, and welcome to Blind Lens Photography YouTube channel. We are starting this new series called Fotoclopedia, in which we'll share interesting and important information about brands, technical details about different lenses and cameras, facts about photographers and techniques in photography. We truly think that this will make your 101 in photography a bit bigger, and it will help you spend the time well in this strange period that we live in. If you're the first time on this channel, make sure you check out the rest of the videos and support us with a like, share, and a subscribe. If you want to follow our photography work, you can check out our Instagram account. I'll leave the link in the description box below. Thanks a lot, and I hope you enjoy the video. The story of Canon starts back in 1934 when a clever guy called Goro Yoshida had a great idea. At the time, his job was to repair photo cameras. He was wondering why the best sellers were German cameras, especially the ones from Leica, which only the richest classes could afford. Leica was known all over the world for the good quality materials used for making the cameras, so out of curiosity, Goro Yoshida dismantled one camera and saw that there was nothing so special in it, so he built his own camera. Together with 3 of his friends, Yoshida founded Optical Industries later that year, and after changing names a few times, it finally became Canon. Also in the late 30s, they have made the first camera prototype, which was called CANON, C-W-A-N-O-N, word which means Buddha spiritual. Just before the Second World War, Optical Industries had 2 headquarters in Tokyo. In 1940, the war begins and things will worsen for Optical Industries. The company starts to collapse and goes bankrupt. Being on the losing side in the war, Tokyo becomes ruled by the Allies, who asked for the company to be reopened because they wanted to buy cheaper cameras. The reopening came also with a new name for the brand, Canon. This is how the first Canon photo cameras start being produced. Canon J2, Canon S, Canon S2, all produced in 1946. At the time, the company used NIKKOR lenses produced by Nikon. In 1950, Takashi Mitari becomes the head of the company. He was a visionary and he was able to get the brand a global recognition. Some of the cameras that were produced after Mitari was named the head of the company were Canon 3, Canon 4, both in 1951, Canon 2A in 1952, and Canon 2AF, this last one in 1953. In 1954, Canon produces their first lens, a 50mm at f1.8, and from that time they stopped using NIKKOR lenses. Some of the models produced in the next years were Canon 2S in 1954, Canon 2S2 in 1955, and Canon VT in 1956. In 1955, they realized that it can't fight their competition when it comes to rangefinder cameras, so they start to invest to be able to produce their first SLRs, single lens reflex. Also in 1955, they opened their first stores in Europe and the US, in Geneva and New York. In 1957, the company chooses to go through a rebranding, and the new logo becomes the one we all know today. Under the new logo, the first cameras to come out were Canon L2 and Canon VT Deluxe, both of them in 1957, and Canon VL2 in 1958. In 1959, they launched Canon Flex, their first SLR. In 1961, they have a comeback in the rangefinder niche, launching Canon 7 with one of the most iconic lenses in the world, the 50mm at f/0.95. In the future years, they produce also SLRs and rangefinders, and some examples are Canon Flex RM in 1962 and Canon Color Demi, a cheaper version of rangefinder cameras, in 1963. In 1965, they develop a new SLR system with a fixed mirror, and they produce a new camera called Canon Pelix. A fact about this Canon Pelix is that they will not use the system for many cameras. A few cameras in the following years are Canon Dial Rapid in 1965, Canon Pelix QL in 1966, and Canon EX-EE in 1969. In 1971, the company produces the first super professional camera and tries to get in the top market for sport photography gear. They promise their clients that they will not change the design for the next 10 years so that the investment will be feasible. The superstar camera is called Canon F1 and it comes with an FD mount, to which they add a motor drive in 1972. The FD mount can be found in all of the Canon SLRs until 1987. In 1976, the competition between Canon and the other important brands at the time like Pentax, Nikon, Minolta, Yashica and Leica start to become more and more aggressive. At this point, Canon releases Canon AE1, where AE stands for auto exposure. The camera contained a microcomputer inside, and because of this, the user could only use semi-automatic mode. One of the other bonuses that this camera had was the low price. These two characteristics made this product perfect for families that wanted to capture different moments in their lives. This heat product was sold in 1.5 million copies, a huge number at the time. A few cameras to mention in these years are Canon F1, later model in 1976, Canon A35 Datelux, one of the first cameras with a built-in flash, in 1977, and Canon A1 in 1978. In 1981, as they promised, after 10 years, they launched the second version of Canon F1 called New F1. The camera looked exactly the same, only some specifications were upgraded. Some more cameras to mention in the next years are the second version of Canon AE1 called Canon AE1 Program in 1981, and a new series of pocket camera called Canon Snappy. One of those models being Snappy 20 in 1982. 1983 represents the beginning of the end for the FD lens mount. Canon releases the T series of cameras, the first in the series being T50 in 1983. This succession represented a new sequence of professional and semi-professional cameras. The second camera in the series was T70, launched in 1984, which was the earliest Canon to have an LCD display. In 1986, a new product was launched and it was called T90, aka the Tank. This nickname for the product was given by the customers who were saying that the camera is indestructible. This Tank was the last camera to have an FD mount. It is worth to mention that this year, Canon Aqua Snappy was created, the first of their waterproof products that could resist up to 10 meters underwater. In 1987, they created the new lens mount called EOS from Electronic Optical System, and they launched the first camera with this kind of lenses. The camera was called Canon EOS 650, and the new lenses had autofocus. This model was followed by Canon EOS 620 in 1987 and Canon EOS 750 QD in 1988. In 1989, Canon launches the first professional camera with EOS mount called Canon EOS 1, equivalent of Canon F1 with an FD mount. In 1990, a new model comes to the market, this one called Canon EOS 10S, which was the budget price model from the EOS series and the equivalent of Canon AE1. In 1991, Canon comes with a new line of low-budget products called Rebel. A line with the same name still exists and represents the same values. In 1992, a new camera comes on the market and it's called Canon EOS 5. This camera has a new system of autofocus called Eye Control AF that was meant to focus where the eye of the photographer was focusing, but this innovation never really worked out the way it was supposed to. In 1995, they launched a new professional camera with an EOS mount called Canon EOS 1 NRS. This product could shoot 10 frames per second and finish a 35mm roll in 3.5 seconds. In this year, it is necessary to mention other two important facts. One of them is that the first image stabilization lenses come out, and the second is that they start a collaboration with Kodak, and they create the first Canon digital camera. The camera was extremely spicy in price. It was worth the money to buy an apartment at the time. And the pictures that were taken with this camera had a low quality, but the innovation was huge. In 2000, Canon D30 is out, and it's the first affordable digital camera by Canon, which costed $3,300. In 2001, the company launches Canon EOS 1D, their first professional digital camera. This product had a flaw. The sensor was a crop and not a full frame. In 2004, was produced the last film SLR Canon camera called EOS Elan 7NE. In 2005, they put out on the market their last film camera called Canon SureShot 90 U2 Date. Also in this year, Canon released their first full-frame camera called Canon EOS 5D and the 5D series, their high-end professional line. In 2008, EOS 5D Mark II is out. This was the most revolutionary digital camera released by them because it was able to record videos in HD format and because it had a live view option. In 2012, they launched the EOS 5D Mark III and the EOS 1DX, which is the new series of professional cameras. The cameras in this new line are the most expensive Canon cameras, and they take the place of the old line called 1D. In contrast with the 1D line, the new 1DX line cameras have a full frame sensor. Also in 2012, they take out on the market a new line of full frame cameras. This line is meant to be a lower budget professional camera. The first model from this line is called Canon EOS 6D. Okay guys, I hope by this time you're still with me. We're close to nowadays. So in 2015, come out the cameras with the highest full frame resolution, 50.6 megapixels. The cameras are called Canon 5DS and Canon 5DSR. In 2016 comes out the second camera from 1DX series called Canon 1DX Mark II. Later this year comes EOS 5D Mark IV, the last product from this line until nowadays. In 2017 they launched EOS 6D Mark II. In 2018 they launched their first professional mirrorless camera called Canon EOS R and the RF lenses for the mirrorless cameras. From 2008 until 2020, the experts in photo cameras criticized Canon for not being innovative enough and not bringing anything new to the market. I'm quoting, "using yesterday's technologies in today's cameras." In 2020, they launched the third camera from the 1DX line called Canon 1DX Mark III, with which they regained their prestige. Shortly after that, two new other professional mirrorless cameras are announced to come out. The first one called EOS R5 and the second one EOS R6. If the specifications mentioned by the brand are true, the EOS R5 will become their new revolutionary camera. Thank you guys so much for staying with me and listening to this information. We hope it was useful and we hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to leave in the comments section what do you think about this video and what do you think about this kind of videos in general, and what subjects are you interested in to be able to add them to the Fotoclopedia. See you next time!